So this is how I think about it. Basically, you have three findings: your seated flexion, deep sacral sulcus, and your iliae. So your deep sacral sulcus is up here, and your iliae are down here. So first, I just want to look at these two things. If your deep sacral sulcus and your iliae are on opposite sides, it's always going to be an oblique axis, okay? Versus if they are on the same side, it's always going to be unilateral flexion or extension. So that's the first thing. Next, if you know it's an oblique axis, you always want to name it rotation over axis. So rotation first over axis. And how you figure out rotation is it's going to be opposite your deep sacral sulcus. So for example, let's say it's deeper here on the left side, your sacrum is rotated to the right. Versus if it's deeper here on the right side, it's going to be rotated left. So let's just do a hypothetical example. Let's say your seated flexion is positive here on the left. What's this diagnosis? It's rotation, which is opposite this, over axis, which is opposite that. So this diagnosis would be a right on right. Okay, let's do another example. If it was positive here on the right side, it's rotation, which is opposite this, over axis, opposite that, left on left. So the other trick I have is if you notice the seated flexion and the deep sacral sulcus, if they are on the same side, it's always going to be forward flex, which means it's a negative spring and sphinx, and that checks out because these letters are the same, right? We said F is either right on right or left on left. So now let's say that the seated flexion is on the other side. So with our trick, we know that it's going to be backward extended, but if we do the proper diagnosis, rotation is opposite this, axis is opposite that, this diagnosis would be right on left, and then this diagnosis would be rotated left over right oblique axis, left on right. And like I said, it's backwards and extended, which means it's going to be a positive spring and sphinx. Positive means bad finding, backward extended, and these are the two options. So now if it's a unilateral diagnosis, you always want to name it based on the side of the positive seated flexion. So let's just say all the findings are on the same side. What does that mean? This whole side, if all the findings, if this is deeper, this whole side is bending forward. That means this side is flexed. So you would name this, the seated flexion positive on the left side, left unilateral flexion. Okay? But if the seated flexion is positive on the right, you would have to name it the side of the seated flexion, so it would be right unilateral. And it's not flexion anymore, it would be extension. Because all the findings here are still on the left side, so this side is flexed, the left side is flexed, which means the right side would be extended. Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. So let's say all the findings were here, it would be, based on the side of seated flexion, right unilateral flexion. Or if the seated flexion was positive here, it would be a left unilateral. And remember, it's not flexion, it would be extension.